You think you're making your own choices? But what if I told you you're not? Your thoughts engineered, your emotions hijacked, your beliefs hand-me-downs disguised as truth. It sounds insane, like a conspiracy, but it's not. It's just psychology, weaponized. You've been trained since birth, by schools that reward obedience, by the media that profits off outrage, by social norms designed to shape you, not free you. Ever noticed how news always feels urgent? How do arguments online always escalate? How does buying the right thing never really make you feel enough? It's not a glitch, it's the system, and you were never meant to question it. But today, everything changes. Because in the next few minutes, you'll learn how to think sharper, faster, and freer than 99% of people. You'll see the strings they never wanted you to notice. And once you see them, you won't unsee them. And that makes you dangerous. Stick around, because what comes next isn't just knowledge, it's your first real thought. Chapter 1. The Mental Cage. You never noticed. You don't need bars to be imprisoned. Most people live in a mental cage, and they've never even rattled the door. It starts young, not with chains, but with whispers. Be realistic. Don't question too much. Follow the rules, and little by little, you stop thinking freely and start thinking safely. But here's the truth most avoid. Your thoughts are shaped long before you choose them. You were programmed to believe in normal, to fear standing out, to follow what the crowd calls truth. Ever notice how quick you are to defend your beliefs, even when you barely know where they came from? That's not a strength, that's reflex. And reflex thinking? That's how the system keeps you docile. Let's flip the mirror. When's the last time you asked yourself, who benefits from my thinking this way? Not just what you believe, but why you believe it. Your brain isn't a neutral machine. It protects your ego. It avoids discomfort. It builds stories to justify your comfort zone. But real growth, it lives in the cracks, where your mind gets uncomfortable, where your certainty starts to wobble. You've got two choices. Keep thinking the way you were taught, or start thinking in a way that's truly yours. The first path is easy. The second, it's war between your past self and the one you're becoming. So ask yourself now, are you free or just comfortable in a cage you've learned to decorate? Chapter 2. Your mind's default mode is survival, not truth. Your brain wasn't built to make you brilliant. It was built to keep you alive, and that's not the same thing. So what does it do? It cuts corners. It favors speed over accuracy. It doesn't ask, is this true? It asks, can I move on? And that's the trap. Because in the modern world, survival isn't dodging predators. It's navigating complexity, nuance, and contradiction. And your brain, it's still running on the same ancient firmware. That's why you trust your gut over data. Why a flashy headline feels more convincing than a research paper. Why do you fall for stories, not statistics? The truth? Thinking is expensive. It burns energy. It creates doubt. It slows you down, so your brain gets lazy, not because it's weak, but because it's trying to protect you from discomfort, from uncertainty, from the work of changing your mind. But here's the kicker. Your brain isn't just lazy, it's also arrogant. It convinces you you're right, even when you have no idea what you're talking about. It hands you certainty like a trophy for a game you didn't even play. Ever noticed how everyone suddenly becomes an expert when there's a crisis? One headline in, and they're quoting like scholars. That's not intelligence. That's the illusion of knowledge. And if you're thinking, that's not me, it probably is. Because the smarter you think you are, the more likely you are to fall for it. So how do you beat this trap? You make your brain sweat. You ask the uncomfortable questions. Am I sure? What am I missing? What would it take to prove myself wrong? You build the habit of mental resistance, the discipline of not trusting the first answer that feels right. Most people don't do this. Most people crave certainty like a drug, but the ones who can sit in the fire of not knowing, they don't just outthink the world, they shape it. Chapter 3. Your brain wants comfort, not clarity. Your brain has one job, to keep you safe. Not smart, not wise, just safe. So it builds a world around you, not based on truth, but on what feels stable. It's like an overprotective parent. It shields you from doubt, filters out complexity, and hands you simple answers in a messy world. And you believe them, because simple feels good, because certainty is warm. But here's the problem. Comfort is not clarity, and safety, it can be a cage. You don't see the full picture. You see what your brain thinks you need to see to avoid discomfort, embarrassment, or change. That's why the truth often feels like an attack. Why facts that don't fit your narrative feel personal. Because your mind isn't searching for what's real. It's searching for what won't hurt. And it gets worse. Your brain doesn't just filter the world. It edits it. It cuts corners. It completes the story before it's finished. It fills in the gaps with assumptions. Someone frowns. Must be mad at you. Someone disagrees. Must be wrong. You don't investigate. You conclude. Not because you're foolish, but because your mind is wired for speed, not depth. And worst of all, it makes you confident in that shortcut. Certain. Unshakable. But confidence without understanding is just ignorance dressed up in boldness. You've seen it. People with loud opinions and little knowledge. Comment section scholars, one video experts. That's the illusion of certainty, and it's dangerous. So how do you break the loop? You slow down. You interrupt the pattern. You teach your brain to sit in the unknown without rushing to fix it. You ask, could I be wrong? What would it look like if I were? What haven't I considered yet? That's the hard part, because your brain will resist. It wants resolution. It wants the dopamine hit of being right. But growth lives in discomfort, and power, real power, belongs to the people who can delay judgment long enough to see what's actually there. Most people won't. They'll stay in the warm bath of certainty. But if you can tolerate the cold shock of truth, you won't just think better. You'll live wider, deeper, sharper, because you won't just see the world more clearly, you'll see yourself. Chapter 4. Emotion writes the script. Logic just reads it. You like to think you're in control, that your choices are driven by logic, that your mind calls the shots while your heart watches quietly from the sidelines. But the truth is that your emotions are already moving the pieces before logic even wakes up. You didn't yell because it made sense. You yelled because it felt like survival. You didn't buy it because you needed it. You bought it because a whisper inside said it might make you feel enough. This is the silent war inside your mind. Emotion versus logic. And emotion always draws first blood. That rush of fear before you spot the danger. That flare of jealousy before you know the whole story. It's instinct, raw and fast, like lightning. And logic? It limps behind with a clipboard, trying to make sense of the wreckage. But here's the trap. Emotion doesn't care about truth. It cares about comfort, ego, and pattern recognition. It's shaped by old wounds, tired stories, and yesterday's ghosts. So you're not reacting to the present, you're reacting to your past, dressed up in today's clothes. And logic? It's often too late to stop you. So it becomes your defense lawyer, crafting a story that makes your impulses look smart. Ever caught yourself justifying something you know wasn't wise? That's not insight. That's post-rationalization. So how do you break the loop? You build a gap between trigger and response, between emotion and execution. Feel it. Pause. Then ask yourself, is this real or just familiar? Am I responding to this moment or the memory it woke up? Would I still act this way tomorrow? Because the moment you slow it down, you weaken emotion's grip. You give logic a chance to breathe. Most people don't do this. They call it gut instinct. But more often than not, it's just fear wearing a confident mask. The ones who master this balance, who feel everything but act deliberately. They move through chaos like water, calm, sharp, in control. They don't silence emotion, they train it. Because they know, emotion may be the spark, but they control the fire. Chapter 5. The illusion of agreement and the cage it builds. What if I told you the world you see isn't the world, it's your world, mirrored back to you by machines that know you better than you know yourself? Every swipe, every scroll, every like. They're not random. They're part of a design, a digital comfort zone custom built to flatter your beliefs and protect your certainty. It feels good, doesn't it? To open your feed and find validation. To hear voices echo your thoughts, frame your fears, fuel your outrage. But that comfort comes at a cost. Because the more you're surrounded by agreement, the harder it is to see where you might be wrong. You stop thinking and start repeating. You become louder but not sharper, certain but not smarter. And then, slowly, your world shrinks. Not physically but mentally. You mistake the familiar for the factual. You confuse popularity with proof. You're not thinking anymore, you're reinforcing. That's the trap. Not censorship, not lies, but curation, a slow, invisible narrowing that turns your mind into a closed loop. So how do you escape? You go hunting for disagreement, for discomfort, for voices that challenge your conclusions and force your ideas into a fight for survival. You don't do it to surrender, you do it to strengthen. Because truth doesn't live in the center of your comfort zone. It lives on the edge, where your ego doesn't want to look. Most people never go there. They'd rather be validated than educated. They'd rather win arguments than ask better questions. But the few who dare to break the mirror, to see the world not as it feels, but as it is, those are the ones who rise above the noise. They don't live inside echo chambers. They build their own towers of thought, wide open, unshakable. Chapter 6. Questions are weapons, if you learn to use them. The smartest people aren't the ones with all the answers. They're the ones who ask the questions no one else thinks to ask. Because questions are not just words. They're scalpels. They cut past noise. They peel back illusion. But most people swing a spoon and call it a sword. They ask, is this true? As if truth were a light switch, on or off. But truth is layered, messy, inconvenient. And if you start with the wrong question, you're guaranteed to end up in the wrong place. Want a better compass? Ask, what would prove me wrong? It's not comfortable, but it's powerful. It forces your ego to step aside and your logic to step up. Then go further. Who profits if I believe this? Because not every idea is innocent. Some are dressed up to sell, to manipulate, to control. The ad that feels empowering, it's built on data designed to trigger your insecurities. The influencer who just wants to help, check the links in their bio. And here's the one that breaks the cycle. How do I know this? Not where you heard it, not who agrees with it, but how do you know? If your answer is, because I just do, or everyone says so, you don't know. You're echoing. But when you trace a belief back to evidence, when you examine its roots instead of its branches, you grow. This isn't about becoming cynical. It's about becoming sharp. Because in a world full of noise, your mind is either a sponge or a scalpel. And the people who shape the world, they don't wait for answers. They wield the right questions like weapons. Chapter 7. The lies your mind whispers as truth. You trust your brain. You think it's your ally, your witness, your compass, your vault of facts and memories. But here's the twist. Your brain is also a magician. And like all great magicians, its best tricks are the ones you don't notice. Ever felt certain you locked the door, only to come back to it wide open? Swore you had a conversation that the other person insists never happened? You're not crazy, you're just human. Because your brain doesn't record reality. It rewrites it. It edits, deletes, and rearranges. It bends facts to fit your emotions. It fills gaps with guesses, and it lies to you with a straight face. One of the worst culprits? Confirmation bias. Once you believe something, your brain becomes a detective, but one that only looks for evidence that says you're right. It hides the rest, not to hurt you, but to protect your ego. Then there's the silent killer, the illusion of truth. Repeat a lie enough times, and your brain starts treating it as fact. Not because it's true, but because it's familiar. That's how propaganda wins. Not with logic, but with volume. And that's terrifying. So how do you fight a liar that lives inside your head? You turn the spotlight around. You ask, Do I know this, or do I just feel like I know it? You challenge your own certainties. You seek the opposing argument, not to agree with it, but to test your own beliefs under pressure. Because real thinking, it doesn't happen by default. It happens by deliberate rebellion against your own mental shortcuts. The moment you stop assuming your thoughts are facts is the moment your mind starts becoming your ally instead of your illusionist. Chapter 8. Why even geniuses make stupid choices. You'd think intelligence is a shield, a force field against dumb decisions. But history tells a different story. Stock market crashes, corporate collapses, global catastrophes, all masterminded by smart people. How? Because intelligence doesn't protect you from bad thinking. Sometimes it supercharges it. See, smart people are skilled at one thing above all, justifying what they already want to believe. They don't just make bad choices. They build beautiful arguments to defend them. Flawed logic, wrapped in brilliance. Then comes the killer, overconfidence. The smarter you are, the more you trust your instincts, even when they are dead wrong. You've been right so many times before. Why would this be any different? But that's exactly when you miss the red flags. That's when the blind spot grows. And don't forget emotional reasoning. Even a genius can fall for a lie that feels right. That dream investment, that perfect partner, that foolproof idea. It isn't logic at the wheel. It's emotion dressed up in logic's clothes. So what's the antidote? Humility. Real, ruthless humility. Question yourself more, not less. Assume you're missing something. Argue against your own ideas before someone else does. And most importantly, invite criticism, because the moment you believe you're too smart to mess up is the exact moment you do. Chapter 9. The illusion of free thinking. You think you're a free thinker. Your thoughts are yours. Your values are carefully chosen. Your opinions are based on logic and facts. But what if they're not? What if most of your beliefs were installed, not chosen? What if the way you see the world, is it just the reflection of someone else's programming? Let's rewind. From the moment you were born, you've been absorbing signals. From parents, teachers, TV screens, social media feeds, religions, national anthems, cultural norms whispered into your subconscious. Now ask yourself, if you were born in another country, with different parents, different schools, different media, would you still believe the same things? Probably not. So how free are your thoughts, really? Here's the unsettling truth. Society doesn't want you to think independently. It wants you to be obedient, predictable, easy to manage, easy to sell to. Governments, corporations, influencers, they all benefit when you follow the script, not when you rewrite it. But here's the shift. Real thinking starts with self-interrogation. Why do I believe this? Where did this idea come from? Have I ever challenged it or just accepted it? Because if you never question your programming, you're not thinking, you're repeating. Break the illusion. Trace every belief back to its source. Burn away what doesn't hold up under scrutiny. Only then do your thoughts become truly yours. Chapter 10. The Trap of Emotional Thinking. You've felt it before. That surge of anger, that rush of fear, that burst of excitement. And in that moment, you made a choice. You said something. You walked away. You jumped in. And later, you asked yourself, what was I thinking? Here's the truth. You weren't thinking. Not really. Because when emotion takes the wheel, logic gets pushed into the back seat. Your brain, built for survival, shortcuts the process. It stops evaluating. It starts reacting. Fight, flight, freeze, or worse, commit. Fear convinces you to play small. Anger blinds you to nuance. Excitement paints red flags white. And in the heat of the moment, every emotional impulse feels right. But feelings don't care about facts. They care about relief, about revenge, about comfort. Critical thinking, it demands something harder. Clarity over comfort, truth over impulse. So how do you break free? Pause before you act, before you decide, before you speak. Ask yourself, if I were calm, would I still make this decision? If the answer is no, that's your warning light. Because emotions aren't villains. They're just storytellers. Loud, dramatic, unreliable. The goal isn't to silence them, it's to listen and then decide anyway. When you learn to recognize emotions' grip, you gain the power to think clearly, even in chaos. Chapter 11, the cost of being a passive thinker. Most people go through life on autopilot. They think they're thinking, but they're just reacting, scrolling, clicking, nodding in agreement with whatever feels familiar. They consume without questioning. They believe without verifying. They repeat without understanding. And that's exactly how the system likes it. Because passive thinkers, they're easy to mold, easy to sell to, easy to control. They chase trends without asking why, follow rules without asking who made them, agree with opinions just because everyone else does. But here's the dangerous truth. If you don't control your mind, someone else will. Every advertisement, every headline, every algorithm, it's not just information, it's influence. They want you distracted, divided, obedient. And if you don't stop to ask, what am I actually believing and why? You're not just uninformed, you're being manipulated. The cost? You lose ownership of your thoughts. Your beliefs are borrowed, your voice becomes an echo. But here's the shift. The moment you wake up, the moment you start questioning, analyzing, thinking, you reclaim your mind. You become unpredictable, independent, uncontrollable. And in a world built on passive obedience, a critical thinker is a threat. Chapter 12, breaking free from mental shortcuts. Let's be honest, your brain is lazy. It doesn't want to think. It wants to react, to take shortcuts, to save energy. And in the wild, that was useful. But in the modern world, it's dangerous. Take stereotypes. They're not always born from hate. They're born from mental laziness. Your brain doesn't want to analyze every person or situation. It wants a shortcut, a box to put things in, a fast conclusion. But fast thinking equals shallow thinking, and shallow thinking leads to bad decisions. Then there are heuristics, tiny mental tricks your brain uses to feel smart. You trust people because they sound confident. You believe something just because it comes from an authority. You go with your gut instead of the evidence. Feels right? Doesn't mean it is right. Here's the truth. Most of what feels like thinking is just reacting. So how do you break free? Pause. When you catch yourself jumping to a conclusion, stop. Ask, am I thinking or just assuming? Push past the first impression, dig deeper, force your brain to do the hard work. Because real thinking, it's slow, it's messy, it's uncomfortable. But it's also the only way to stop living on autopilot and start seeing the world as it truly is. Break the shortcut, reclaim your mind, think for real. Chapter 13, the lies your brain tells you. Your brain lies, not sometimes, all the time. It filters out facts, rewrites memories, and bends reality to protect your ego. Ever win an argument, only to realize later you weren't even right? Ever mess up, but instantly blame someone or something else? That's not logic. That's your mind shielding you from the truth. Because the truth, it's uncomfortable. And your brain, it's addicted to comfort. This is confirmation bias. The instinct to seek only what agrees with you and to block out what doesn't. It's why you scroll past things that challenge your views. Why do you only hear what proves you right? Why do you double down on bad beliefs? Just because they feel good. And here's the brutal twist. The smarter you are, the better you are at lying to yourself. Intelligence doesn't protect you from bias. It just helps you build better defenses around it. So how do you fight back? You hunt the uncomfortable. You question your own beliefs. You ask, what if I'm wrong? What am I afraid to admit? Because truth doesn't live in your comfort zone. It lives where it hurts. Stop running from the truth. Start chasing it, even if it breaks you, especially if it does. Chapter 14. Why most people are easily manipulated. You think you're in control. You're not. Every single day, someone or something is hacking your mind. Advertisers, politicians, influencers, algorithms. And if you're not actively resisting, You're being controlled without even realizing it. Take social media. You think you're just scrolling? Wrong. Every post, every ad, every recommended video is precision engineered to hijack your emotions. Not to inform you, not to entertain you, but to keep you angry, addicted, and obedient. Why? Because emotion equals control. Fear makes you desperate. Anger makes you irrational. Excitement makes you impulsive. And in that state, you're not thinking. You're reacting. You're easy to predict, easy to sell to, easy to control. And the news, it's not about truth. It's about reaction. Because headlines don't need to be honest. They just need to grab you by the throat. So how do you fight back? Pause. Whenever you feel triggered by rage, fear, or euphoria, stop. Ask yourself, why am I feeling this? Who gains from my reaction? That one moment of awareness? It breaks the spell. Because in a world that profits from your blindness, seeing clearly is rebellion. And once you stop being manipulated, you start being dangerous. Chapter 15. The hidden power of asking better questions. Most people don't think critically, not because they can't, but because they never learned how to ask the right questions. They hear something and accept it. No challenge, no resistance, just blind belief. But every revolutionary mind in history, Einstein, Socrates, Curie, Tesla, had one thing in common. They questioned everything. Why is this true? Who benefits from this idea? What's the evidence against it? Could I be wrong? These aren't just questions. They're weapons. Sharp, precise, dangerous. They slice through lies, crack open hidden agendas, and expose uncomfortable truths. You want to know how progress happens? It doesn't start with answers. It starts with one bold question. What if we're wrong? But most people never ask. They're afraid to look stupid, afraid to stand out, afraid to shake the system, so they stay quiet. They nod. They comply. Not you. If you want to master critical thinking, you've got to turn questioning into a habit. Make it automatic, relentless. When you hear something from the media, your friends, your own mind, don't accept it. Interrogate it. Because truth doesn't reveal itself to the obedient. It bows to the curious, to the brave, to the ones who dare to ask what no one else will. Conclusion. See the game. Play it better. You've just unlocked a truth most people will never touch. Your mind is your greatest weapon and your most dangerous enemy. Every day you're surrounded by manipulation, bias, and noise. Most people are sleepwalking through it, reacting, obeying, consuming, but not you. You've seen the traps. You've spotted the illusions, and that alone puts you ahead of 99% of the world. Critical thinking isn't just a skill, it's armor. It's how you protect your mind. It's how you lead when others follow. It's how you stop getting played and start playing to win. But now comes the most important question of all. What will you do with this power? Will you question what everyone else blindly accepts? Will you challenge your own beliefs, even when it hurts? Will you train your mind or let the world train it for you? Because awareness is not enough. Action is what separates the watchers from the warriors. If this hits something deep, don't let it end here. Like the video, subscribe, and follow for more tools to protect your mind and sharpen your thinking. Because in a world built to distract you, the sharpest minds don't just survive, they dominate. Don't stop now. Level up.